In the podcast, I'm going to put a small intro on it, and then I'm going to count to 3, and then you're going to be cheering like this is the best thing ever happened.
Meet Palle Bo, a digital nomad from Denmark on an epic journey around the world. This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
This is a very special version. This weekend, I attended the Borderless Live conference in London. It's a brand new 2-day event organized by Traverse Events and WTM, World Travel Market. And it's all about content creation and how we, as content creators, can work with brands and destinations. They invited me to moderate a panel, and we decided to put it out as a podcast right here on the Radio Vagabond. So if you're a writer, blogger, YouTuber, Instagrammer, or podcaster like me, this will probably be interesting for you. Before we kick off the panel, and I count to 3, I want to mention 2 things. As always, the Radio Vagabond is supported in part by Hotels25.com. It's a website that helps you find the best prices on hotel rooms and guest houses around the world. You should try it out, it actually works. Hotels25.com. And secondly, at the very end of this episode, I have some exciting news about a brand new podcast that's about to be launched. If you're interested in the topic of this episode, I'm pretty sure that you will also find that interesting. Welcome to the Radio Vagabond.
1, 2, 3. Oh, thank you. I wasn't expecting that. No, thank you so much. Welcome to this amazing panel I have with me here. We are calling this, and this is something that's been changing a little bit, but we decided on ending up with the title, The State of Travel Content Creation 2019. In this session, we're going to be talking about what is best practice when working with a brand or a destination as a content creator. Also, I hope that we can take a look into the crystal ball and get a sense of where this industry is going. So much has happened since I became a content creator and full-time traveler 3 years ago, and I have the feeling that so much more is going to happen in the next few years. I feel that this industry is still only a teenager and maybe a preteen, and so much is going to happen. We're also going to talk about what can we do to help each other, if we should help each other, what can we do to benefit each other, and then I really hope that you guys will have a lot of questions. My name is Palle Bo. I am a podcaster. I do the Radio Vagabond. I'm a full-time traveler. I'm literally homeless, and I'm so lucky to have this panel, so you won't have to listen to me all the time. The first person on the panel is a photographer, videographer, and location scout. She's originally from Switzerland. She's amazing and super creative. She's got an two Instagram profiles at kim.ou and one called Traveling Cars, where she takes pictures of toys. Please give a big round of applause for Kim Leuenberger. The guy I'm going to introduce now, he's obsessed with exploring the world and meeting amazing people and goats for some reason. He's trying to get lost as much as possible with his camera. He's a fantastic photographer, videographer, and travel blogger. In fact, he's ranked number 2 in the top 100 UK travel blogs. I wonder who's number 1. I didn't look for that, but I'm just so proud to have Daniel on here, Daniel James. He's mostly known as Dan Flying Solo. And then we have a German girl abroad who lives here in London. She's got an amazing talent for sharing her passion, exploring other cultures of the world. And you can see her always smiling face on her YouTube channel called Sandy Makes Sense. Sandy Breumeiter. Close enough? See, I really like to say names wrong because nobody says my name right. So that's my thing. The last one on the panel is a YouTuber, but a very different kind. He does do shorter videos from time to time, but he's more into the TV-style travel documentaries that are on YouTube and are sometimes around an hour long. He's mostly focusing on backpacking trips. However, I had the pleasure of getting to know Carl on a press trip to an all-inclusive hotel resort in Antigua recently. He does a session on editing videos later that you must attend because he's super, super talented and a very nice guy, and his name is Carl Watson. Isn't this a great panel I have here? First, let's talk a little bit about the different medias, because we, as a group, 5 people, we represent all kinds of different mediums. Let's start, maybe Kim, that you can share a little bit more about what it is that you do, and what's the thing about the toy cars?
Oh, that's been very, that started 8 years ago. So I've kind of slowed down on that side. I was really bored one day and I just took all of my toys out. Toys. I had decoration in my room and I just got given a camera and just took photos of little cars, and then I started traveling with them. And things unfolded and then started getting press and sort of a little bit of spotlight on this project. And it's allowed me to get where I am today. So I was on Instagram when it started. And it kind of got traction from that, the whole community aspect and all that. And I do photography on the side as well, always have. So I've always had the 2 channels. One was for like playing, taking all those photos, and then that project, and then the photography on the other side. But yeah, mostly focused on Instagram, travel, and photography.
Yeah, but you kind of stopped doing the toy cars.
I've grown up. It was really bizarre because I did a degree in photography and I went to university, and everyone at university hated it. All of my tutors, they're like, what is this? And I started like getting more and more not talking about it. And then I carried on doing it for like a little bit side project and having fun. And then the fun kind of stopped when people were expecting to get more photos from it. But yeah, it's kind of like everyone was asking me when this project would stop. What was the end goal of it? And there was never really any. It was always an escape more than anything else. So it might start again, but yeah.
But the Kim.ou, what's the OU stand for?
Nothing. I mean, I guess in French it means where, but people call me Kimu back home, and the Kimu was taken.
I'm saying it wrong. I shouldn't say OU. I said O.
Yeah, it's Kimu. Yeah,
Kimu.
So I don't know, but like it kind of works both ways because first language is French and it means where.
Yeah.
So, and I travel.
Yeah.
The first question everyone asks me is like, where are you in the world? It's not even how are you anymore. It's like, where are you?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think we all get that from time to time. Yeah. Dan, you do a bit of everything, but your main channel is the blogging thing, and the stuff, the content on your blog is just so good. It's super annoying to watch as another blogger trying to do good work. But can you tell me a little bit about how you work with your blog?
Yeah, my passion was always photography, so I kind of invested a lot of time in Instagram when I first started, and then I just realized that actually, although I love photography, I really love people's stories and the travel experiences, and obviously it's very hard to get that across on social media sometimes. So I started my blog very much like I'm dyslexic, I don't have any formal education in writing, and it was terrible. And then over the last kind of 5 years, I've got to the point now where I'm writing sometimes 5,000-6,000 word kind of essays on a destination, which is a lot more deeper, because that's the travel I was passionate for. So that was a really big lesson, and actually, like, maybe even if it's not your strong point, you can achieve something. I'm now getting 1.5 million page views a year, which is amazing for someone that's not a writer, I think. So
thank you, Grammarly.
So Grammarly is my best friend. So I think it's really important to kind of diversify. That's what I learned, especially when I made the transition to doing this full time, is that money is very as we all know, as freelancers, it comes and goes. So it's really important to kind of have different channels and be able to tell the stories you want to tell rather than just focusing on where the money is. So yeah, hence why blogging became the big thing. Now I've started transitioning to video, as a lot of people have, because I found that's a really good way to kind of combine the imagery of the photography I love with the stories I want to tell. So yeah, trying to do a bit of everything as much as time allows.
Yeah. Time is something that's always something we need more of. And Sandy, your main channel is the YouTube.
I love YouTube a lot. So my tagline is, I guess, German girl abroad, because I came to England like 10 years ago from Germany as an au pair. Every German girl loves going abroad to be an au pair. And this is where I learned my English, and this is where I learned living in England, about British people. And I had lots of stories to share about what British people do in daily life, and it was very weird to me as a German. So I started my YouTube channel based on talking about the British culture. And then eventually it evolved about other cultures and other languages, and I guess language is like one of my big passions as well. So yeah, this is, I guess, how it all started.
There's no specific focus on your channel?
I'm trying. Everybody here talks about finding your niche, and it's very, very hard. I'm trying at the moment to focus a little bit more on sort of similar to what you said, going a little bit deeper, finding stories of people, sustainability. But yeah, I guess what I've done the last few years is language-based and culture-driven.
Mm. And I've seen you eat food as well.
Yes.
I saw it both on your channel, and when we were in Antigua, I was sitting across the table and you just ignoring me because you're talking into the camera. But that's what it's like being around YouTubers.
I've recently had a few people coming up to me saying, "Oh, we love your food videos," mm-hmm. and it was never something that I thought was something that I should maybe focus on or do, but maybe I should. Maybe that's my new niche.
Yeah. When as I mentioned, I was with Carl in Antigua, and actually when we were doing a canoeing trip, Carl said, "Can you?" Because he noticed that I had a GoPro and he didn't have one, so he said, "Can we go in the same one, and maybe you can do a little bit of video and of me rowing?" And I was in the back with my GoPro, and I thought, I'm filming for Carl Watson, so I recorded and recorded and recorded so much, and I at some point I said, "Do you think I have enough now?" "Well, you've been recording 45 minutes. I think you have enough, Palle." And then when I saw his video, my clip was in, but it was a second and a half of the 45 minutes. No, Carl, please tell me if, obviously, you're a filmmaker. I wouldn't even call you a YouTuber per se, because you're more like a documentary filmmaker. Why did you decide to break the rules of not doing 10-minute videos only?
It's probably because I started making travel films in like 2007, so YouTube was like in its infancy. So it wasn't like a reaction against vlogs. Like,
you didn't know the rules.
Vlogs didn't exist. So I was inspired by like TV documentaries like Long Way Down, Long Way Round series. And I loved how honest they were about their experience, the highs and the lows. And you watch it and you forget you're watching TV, you just feel like you're on the journey with them. So I just sort of emulated that. And the whole point was like, like some TV documentaries, you've got like Michael Palin end of the spectrum, which is very kind of factual and stuff. And then you've got like the Bear Grylls end of the spectrum, where it's like, let's go there and try and die. But none of them told you what it's like when you as an ordinary traveller buy a ticket and go there. Mm. So I was like, let's just do that and just film the backpacking experience. But it was never a reaction against vlogs. It was just copying what I liked at the time kind of thing. So yeah. And occasionally I have kayaking footage, but yeah.
And
occasionally I have kayaking footage, but sometimes it doesn't make the edit.
Yeah. Okay. And just to say what I do, in case you might have some questions for a podcast, I do kind of what Carl does in his videos, but only as an audio. I try to tell the story of my journey, so I try to take people along on my journey and record a lot on the different locations, and then I do the occasional interviews as well, but that's just something that comes out as bonus material. Okay, let's talk a little bit about working with brands. What are your experiences? Maybe some of you have a really great experience. Maybe one of you have a horror story. So please share that. If you have a horror story, please don't mention the brand names in case you want to. But let me know what is the best experience and what is the worst experience when working with a brand. Sandy?
Okay. I'm going to talk about languages again. So I can mention that brand, the positive one?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay. So about maybe now 3 years ago or so, I got approached by Rosetta Stone. It's like a language learning software brand. And they said, oh, you know, you do your videos in English and you're German and your English is really good. And I've made videos about how to improve your English. So they thought, you know, you're interested in languages. We are language learning software. Let's work together. And they left me some space and I left them some space. And we had lots of discussion around how the collaboration could actually work. So it wasn't a question of, here's your brand brief, this is how the video is supposed to look like. So it was like, what would work for you? What are you interested in? And in the end, what we together came up with was me trying to learn the language, very basic, and then actually traveling to the country of where they speak that language and trying it out live. So I had my boyfriend with me who was filming me in a restaurant trying to speak French to the waiter, and I was so nervous, but it all kind of turned out really well. And then we did it again with Spanish. So I traveled to Spain and I did a video there with my sort of early Spanish that I learned through the software. And because it was just a really awesome collaboration. We actually worked together 3 times, and it's just something really close to my heart. So that's my favorite brand collaboration. Because of the, I guess, working together instead of just going one way or the other.
Yeah. Kim, can you say a little bit about how you're working with brands? I know that you're a brand ambassador for the camera that you're using.
I am. No, I like working with brands on like more than one time basis. I kind of like seen so many people that do one project with a brand and literally 2 weeks later they will work with a competitor or something completely like that kind of doesn't make sense. There's something going on. Okay, I'll carry on. Yeah, so I feel like this is something online. Like I see so many people advertising like a packet of crisps or something like that, and it kind of like, but you do travel. Why a packet of crisps? It doesn't make sense. And so when I work with a brand, I always try to have something that I would actually use or I have used beforehand. So one of the brands I work the most with is Hertz. So, and I have a really good, I don't know if you saw Barry's talk, but he's doing the PR for them. And we've been working together for 3 years, and I create content for their Instagram. And I can kind of go up to them and be like, guys, can we do something? Can I go over there? And like we kind of brainstorm. And with time, we've become friends, which I think kind of helps in the whole like relationship of things. And like camera-wise, like I'm an ambassador for Leica. So I do workshops for them on the side as well. So it's not so much about social media, but at the same time, they are the camera I used. So I'm quite happy to like disclose that when I share them online. But yeah, I like that like ongoing relationship. I don't want to do a one-time off and like, yeah, I ate those crisps. And
have you ever had any experiences where you were going into something and you thought this is going to be great, and then it just turned out really a bad working relationship?
Yeah, and I'm going to say the name because everyone is addicted to them anyway, and I still use them. I did a massive thing 3 years ago with Netflix, where they were sourcing content creators. They would call them their grandmasters. And there was a big call of action. It was like everywhere online and like big press. And I think there was about 1 million like applications to get that job and like travel for 2 weeks all around Europe to take photos of filming locations. And I love doing location scouting. So that's like literally my dream job. And I embarked onto this thing, and it was all like sorted by a German agency in Berlin. And it was such a mess. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. I got robbed in Naples. I had like maybe 5 hours of sleep a night, like the time to have one meal, and I had to drive myself like from Paris down to Barcelona. And I just don't know, like they didn't sort out any of the access to take the photos or like all the other things. So it was I feel like we were paid at the end of it, but they were kind of made it sound like a competition, this the dream job, and it's very marketing sort of thing to appeal people to apply, but to get cheap content in exchange, make you feel special to be chosen, part of the 4 at the end. Yeah, that was bad. But otherwise, it's not been too bad so far.
Carl, have you had any bad experiences?
Yep. So this was for a hotel chain. I won't say which one, but I don't think it's the hotel's chain's fault. It's more the marketing company in between. So they approached me about doing this trip called 3 Weekend Adventures in Britain, where we go to 3 different cities and show off going on a staycation and the things you can do in and around each city. And she first sent me an email about whether I was interested, and I said, yes, I am interested, let's have a meeting. No reply for 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, I said, do you actually want to do this? And she went, oh yeah, we're signing it off now. I was like, signing what off? I haven't agreed to anything. And then they told me they wanted to do 3 weekend adventures, but from a Monday to a Friday. So already not really getting the title of the thing right here. And I was like, this is going to be too rushed, too stressful, it's not going to work, thanks, but no thanks. Then they offered me a shitload more money, and so I was it's to the point where it would have been the equivalent. I got paid the equivalent of like a month and a half's pay that I get freelance for editing for what would be 2 weeks' work. And I thought, well, I haven't done a paid trip for my channel yet. It'd be a good experience to that, get in with a big client. So I said yes, and then just the organization of it was terrible. We showed up to the hotel, they had our booking wrong. And they're like, what's with the camera? I was like, I'm working for you. And then we spent like 2 weeks. They wanted me to upload the footage each day as I went. I was like, well, are you going to give me like business broadband in the hotel? They went, no, just use the Wi-Fi. I was like, okay, you've never even uploaded a picture from a hotel. Never mind 100 gigs of... So all these stressful things. And then we got to Manchester, and I was so stressed out. I was like, I'm supposed to be excited to be in Manchester for the video, but I'm not excited to be here. I'm stressed out. I can't. And the idea is like, oh, go and see this secondhand record store and go and see this cool kind of hipster clothes store. And I was like, that's not exciting, but I'm not the kind of person that can feign enthusiasm. So our solution was, and this is not the most professional solution, but we went and got really drunk. Didn't film that, but then we went to the shops and we had a good laugh and got some funny footage and just edited it very carefully so it just looked like we're fun, lively people, not drunks. But the problem with doing it from a Monday to a Friday was each of these cities was empty because everyone's at work. Like they were saying, oh, when you get to Newcastle, go check out the market. And I was like, yeah, I grew up near Newcastle and the markets are open on the weekend, hence Weekend Adventures, but it's a Tuesday. And they were like, oh, go check out Newcastle's amazing nightlife. I was like, all right, but it's the Monday after St. Paddy's weekend. No one's in any of the bars. And we did this curry train there's a village just outside of Newcastle with like the best Indian restaurant I've ever been to, including I've been to India. It was just amazing. And the idea is you book a ticket and it covers your train fare and they give you drinks on the train. It's a bit of a party. And you get to the restaurant and have an amazing meal. And it's normally about 50 people on the train all getting to know each other and a great time. It was just me and James and the waiter with a cool box going, do you want a beer? And we're like, this is great footage. And we get to the restaurant, it's empty. I mean, the food came out really quick, but... and so it was so stressful. I hated the whole thing. I ended up getting so stressed out, I got tonsillitis and knocked myself out for a week from it. But at the same time, I'm glad I did it because I learned so much. You always learn more from the bad experiences about like what I don't want to do again in the future. So... yeah, go. It's 3 weekend adventures in Britain. It's on my channel. You can check it out and see if you can spot the bits where we're actually really drunk when we're not supposed to be.
But you've also had some good experiences.
Yes,
Can you give me an example of a brand that really knew what they were doing?
Well, I've just come back from Catalonia and the guys are here. So that was a fantastic kind of trip where we're doing it was like a mystery adventure tour where we didn't know what activity we were going to do each day and. That was really cool. They really looked after us. And it was a nice mixture of accommodation because the danger with press trip is sometimes they'll put you in like 5-star accommodation the whole time. which is lovely. But if you're normally doing backpacking videos, it's like doesn't really fit in with your style. But we had a variety of
And I noticed that
accommodation.
you were struggling with the beginning of because you focus on backtracking and then on the Antigua video.
Yeah,
it's like, it's different.
So we were. This was with Traverse. We had like a all-inclusive week in Antigua in the Caribbean, staying in an all-inclusive resort. And I opened the video by saying, this trip is very different for me because I normally do backpacking hostels. This is the other end of the spectrum. Just set it up from the start. And I still got comments going, oh, this is very different to your normal stuff, Carl. I'm like, I said that in the first 10
skip the beginning?
seconds. Just, mouth shut, ears open, pay attention. But yeah.
Yeah. Dan, tell me a little bit about how you work with brands, or if you've had some experiences that you'd like to share.
So I tend to work with destinations and DMOs only. I quite actively made the decision at the beginning I wasn't going to work with kind of one-off brands because I didn't want my channel to become selling products. I wanted it to focus very much on the channel, the travel. I've worked with Canon because they're the camera company I use, but other than that, it's mainly destinations. The best kind of way I found to work, and the best trip I probably had recently, was with a Traverse trip to Dominica in the Caribbean, because it was very much get on a plane and go. Like, we got there and they handed us an envelope with our stipend, and they're like, here's your money, find a restaurant, eat. Before we went, they sent us a list of all of the activities on the island, and they're like, tell us what you want to do. And we had about 6 minutes with the PR lady when she came and found us drinking rum punches in the pool, and she was like, have a great trip. And that was it. And I came away from that with incredible content because I was given the free rein to create what I wanted to create. And I think a lot of the times on press trips, if you aren't upfront that I don't want to do this, you will end up doing things you don't want to do, and then you have to create content around it. So it's one thing for me is if I'm doing a travel trip, it needs to be something that I would naturally do so I can be excited on the video about it, so I can write about it passionately. So that was an amazing campaign because we didn't stay in top-end resorts. We stayed in 3-star hotels. We got to pick where we ate, where we drank, the activities we did. And I came away from that trip and over-delivered loads to the point that I'm actually making a full hour-long blown documentary about this destination because it was incredible. So that's kind of the best example. On the flip side, sometimes press trips can be a disaster. The worst one I've probably done in the past year was sold to me as a cultural trip to a destination. And I got there and it had been rebranded to an influencer iCamp with 40 people. So there was about 38 models essentially, and then a couple of guys there, to the point that we were cut out of every video clip. But the first thing that struck me when I got there was the complete lack of diversity. To the point that a few of us actually sat down with the organizer and we were like, this isn't cool. You've got 40 people here representing a very slim amount of people. And I don't know if Marty's in the room. Marty actually called that out publicly, as she does very well. And we had a little back and forth on Instagram where I was like, there are people here that are calling this out. And it was really nice to actually see that happening on a trip and some of the people recognizing that this was a very privileged trip where they were taking us to a national park, which was beautiful, but then setting up an influencer-style breakfast that cost 10 grand for a member of the public to do. The trip was actually great in the end, because at the end we had 4 days on our own where they gave us a car to just explore. But that is a disaster. That's really made me realize I need to know the exact details of what's going to happen before I go on a trip, because at some point it had gone from a cultural staying with locals trip to a 10 grand breakfast for Instagram. So I think that's one of the big lessons I've taken away is to turn down things if you in your gut don't feel they're right. Is just to say no, and actually it's better to really be picky and find the right relationships rather than rushing into something without all the detail.
And that's I'm also thinking about the whole thing about how if they demand how much you publish, how many Instagram posts, and how much you deliver. I remember when Michael Ball called me about the Antigua trip, and I said, it's fine, it's in my calendar, and I can do it. What do you expect me to deliver? And Michael just said, well, it's up to you. Really? Yeah. If you don't want to do anything, don't do anything. Probably won't get invited again, but it's totally up to you. And they were just the whole Antigua organization and the Traverse people. They were so nice. So you just want to give back and honor that. Any of you have any experiences about working with destinations or brands that demand deliverables?
I think when there's a money exchange in like the presence in the press trip, there's quite often a contract and a minimum of X amount of posts and stories. I had recently I was doing just like a free, like it was just a stay in a Ritz-Carlton in California. And it was after the whole drama of like all the fake followers with Ritz-Carlton like happened last year. And we just needed a place to stay for one night in Laguna Niguel. And amazing, like they were like, oh, come in, like you have to do a post. But like we had to sign a 5-page document contract for one night stay at the Ritz-Carlton. So it was one post on Instagram, stories and all that. And we were like talking to that PR person. I was like, who hurt you? Who was so mean to you that you turned into this anxious mess of, what have them done to you? So I find it really hard to like commit to a minimum amount of posts before going somewhere, because you never know what it's going to be like. And usually like when you undercommit like 2 photos, 3 photos, it'd be like, if it's really good, there'll be more, like for sure. But just give me space to breathe and not have the pressure on me that I need to deliver this. Then like the content will be a lot more interesting as well. But yeah, it's tricky.
I kind of think there should be a deliverable, even if it's paid or not, especially for travel and press trips. Like if you're a journalist and you're going on a trip, you need to have a commission generally. So I don't think there should be an expectation that we as bloggers can just go on a trip and not deliver anything. So I do think there should always be a chat beforehand of, what that's going to be. And there should be something in place, whether it's paid or not. Just because otherwise, there is sadly, obviously brands getting hurt. And I know of destinations and places I've worked before that now have really limited the bloggers they work with because there hasn't been those conversations. So as long as it's honest and upfront and discussed, then obviously it's going to be a lot less for an unpaid trip than a paid trip. But yeah, I think, if journalists have to have a commission generally to go on a trip, then I don't see why we should have a problem with, guaranteeing something at least.
Sandy?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a fine line between saying, can you deliver minimum 1 video and 1 Instagram post, but you do with it whatever you want, as opposed to in your video, you have to talk about X, Y, and Z. That's a completely different story, right? So if that happens, that won't work for me because I don't even know if I want to talk about this or if I experience that castle the way they want me to experience it. But yeah, if I go somewhere and I have a minimum deliverable, that's fine from my side as well.
Yeah, it depends. They need to sort of obviously understand what it is that you do and ask for appropriate deliverables. Because I have offered a press trip where they've been like, "Oh, we love your channel, Carl. We've been following it for years. We're huge fans. Can you do us 3 2-minute vlogs on this destination?" I was like, "You haven't watched my channel at all, have you?" So, and it's also like sometimes they want me to do one of my films, and they go, "Oh, can you do Instagram stories along the way and Instagram pictures?" And I just say no. Like, I can do one Instagram picture a day, maybe after the trip, but if you want me to be filming the trip, I can't then, put that camera down, get my phone out, do an Instagram story as well. And plus, you also need, when they try and it's a bit of a tangent, but when they try and overstuff these press trips and make it so busy, you get stressed out and tired. And you're supposed to be on holiday. That's what you're selling. And so you need to actually have time to sort of relax, take it easy so you can actually enjoy yourself and be more creative. And we chatted about this with the Catalonia Tourism Board because they were asking for our feedback. And we said, it'd be better if instead of filming an entire day, so I was filming from 7 a.m. to almost midnight because we had so much stuff on. And because it was mystery, we didn't know when to film, when not to film, so I just filmed everything. So it's far better if you fill a schedule where it's only doing half days or 2/3 of a day, because then you have time either just to chill out or to back up your footage or actually start writing stuff or whatever, but it gives you more free time, get re-energized, and then you can start, the content will be better in the end, because then the next day you'll be energized and ready to film again, rather than just having the camera on the whole time. What are we doing now? So.
Well, I can totally relate to that, and I've done a fam trip last year, though it was so packed that we didn't have any downtime at all. And actually, I just did a great 10-day trip to Sri Lanka with them. And when they asked, "Is there anything we could do better?" the only thing I said is maybe leave a little bit more time to get energized again, because it was so packed that it was almost draining to do all that. But yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, you want to be arriving at these places sort of going, oh, wow, this mountain's amazing. Not like, all right, it's the fourth mountain we've seen in the last half hour and I've been filming non-stop. You want to be excited and get that genuine reaction on video with whatever, rather than just being, just becoming a blur because you're exhausted. So, it's first world problems, but, it's...
Okay, let's go to the never-ending discussion about what should we do for a free trip, and should we expect to be paid?
So my general opinion is you should always be paid, because this is our job, and journalists get a salary. We don't. We work, we create content, and that's like my general view. However, it depends on the trip. It depends how much time you have. It depends if this is your full-time income, or if you're just doing this, on the side, and you can have a little bit less money. It also depends on, I guess, what's coming from the brand in return and what they're asking for in return. This is where we're going back to what we just said. If a brand comes and says, make 3 videos and daily Instagram posts and 10 stories, but we don't pay you anything, that's a different story to them saying, come to my destination, we can't pay you, but we'd be happy if you do something. Completely different story. But in general, this is our job, and even if we go on a 10-day cruise around the Caribbean and all expenses paid, we're still not getting any money for 10 days. So, and that doesn't help us pay the rent either. That's my opinion.
I think, again, it depends also what's coming in exchange from the brand. Because there's some trips that you do, that you get offered. Especially when it's tourism boards, it's money that's funded by the state. It's taxpayers' money. And you get, if it's a place you've always dreamt to go. Like I went to Rwanda this year in February, and I wasn't paid for it. So that was a free press trip. And I actually created a lot of content that now I've been able to sell to press afterwards for the images. So I also kind of look at the side of it where, on my side, what do I get out of it? So in terms of content creation. So I do sell a lot of my images after some press trips that I've sold for websites, got money out of it from licensing and all that. So if I kind of see a potential and I'm in the long term maybe winning something from it, then I'd be eager to do it. But it kind of really depends on sort of what stand. I do a lot of free press trips because I'm a nomad. I don't have an address right now. So for me, it's a week free of rent, and going around, you treat it like a king or a queen, and you have a good time. But then it will always depend where the funding comes from. And if I'm working for a brand, if it's something that I need, for example, in exchange of a camera, it always depends on the value and how much you need it and what you get out of it. But it's quite, again, it depends where it comes from.
Yeah, I kind of agree on both sides. I do think people should get paid because it's their job, and that might be a daily stipend, because at the end of the day, on every press trip, you spend your own money, even if everything's included to a degree. But I also think that everybody has different lines, and people will say they'll never do anything for free, but if someone offered them a 20 grand trip to Antarctica, they might change their mind. So I think we all have to be quite honest about that and realize it's a great privilege to travel full time, and people that are doing this part time, if they want to have a free weekend away, it's really not up to me as a full-time traveller to be mad that they've done it unpaid, if they can deliver great content. But back to your point, I think one of the big things to realise is I've done unpaid trips before, but I've never done a trip that's not made me money, because I've diversified my income stream. So whether that's writing for another publication, ad revenue, affiliate links afterwards from selling the tour, selling imagery, you can go on an unpaid trip and you might make a lot more money from that. For example, in certain publications, if I've been paid for the trip, I can't write for that publication because they won't allow paid advertising, essentially. So I think you can diversify your business model to make money from unpaid trips, and you just have to really think about that when you go in, is, how can I make money from this trip? It's something I want to do, it's unpaid, but I still need to make a wage. I think that's something we don't talk about enough in this industry, is other ways to make money from that content, which I didn't know about 5 years ago when I started, and now I've got a 10-point checklist of, after each trip, here's ways I can make money from it. It's looking at each individual situation.
Can you name a few of those?
So selling imagery, stock imagery, editors alerts from Trav Media and stuff. There's always people, especially for less generally, like, I find I don't get paid on press trips to random destinations like Bosnia and Herzegovina. I did some work for them last year. They don't really have a full tourism board, but I sold on imagery from that because there's not much online. I sold on articles from that because it's of an interesting destination. I sold into other channels video clips, which they've then used in their libraries. So there's loads of ways to make money beyond the blog, the YouTube, social media. From a trip, to the point that, you know, you might get 10, like a journalist would go on a press trip, they probably aren't going to cover, if they're freelance, from one trip. They're going to write 5, 6, 7 articles from that trip to different publications. And I think that's something we as content creators can really make an extra income from as well. Rather than having to jump between paid press trip to paid press trip, we can then have some downtime to process that content into something else and make money that way.
Yeah. Carl?
They've said it all, really. But it does depend on the trip. Like, you know, 2 weeks after that awful Britain trip, which was very well paid, I did a free trip, but that was like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It was by Shackleton Whiskey. We went to the middle of Norway to sort of train where Ernest Shackleton did, to do snow survival stuff. The people training us had recreated Shackleton's trip a few years ago. It's also, if you know Star Wars, it's where they shot the ice planet Hoth in Empire Strikes Back, and we were like digging snow holes and all this stuff. And it was like, yeah, it's unpaid, but when am I ever going to get to do that at all? So it was like, I jumped at it, and the trip was fun. I mean, I don't regret it one moment at all. So it depends on what the trip is, basically.
Yeah. And when you mentioned the Antarctica trip, I remember I had the Crowded Planet, Nick and Margarita on my podcast, and they said, they used the Antarctica example, and then they said, well, we all have our own Antarctica. And for me, it's probably not Copenhagen, because I've been there before a few times. But if it's Antigua or Sri Lanka or somewhere that's on my list that I want to go, I can find that interesting. So yeah, absolutely. Is there a question from the audience on this topic, because that I haven't asked?
Hello, everyone. Hi, guys. Thank you for coming on the podcast and speaking about your experiences, travel content creating. Dan, I had a question for you. You mentioned about different income streams you had, which included stock imagery. Obviously, you got affiliate marketing, you got AdSense on Google as well. Could you touch more on those streams as well? You mentioned a 10-point checklist you had.
Yeah.
So could you kindly go into more detail about it first, or is that confidential?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, all of this is stuff I've learned over the last few years from different people here. Janet, who's there, I travel a lot with. I'm very lucky to call her a good friend, and she comes from a journalist background, so she just taught me a lot of this as well. The first one is selling in imagery to stock sites, which, I mean, you can upload video as well, 4K video. If you have short clips, that's a really good place to put it. Also, like signing up to like Trav Media, journo requests on Twitter, PR requests. I constantly get people messaging me like, hey, we saw you in Dominica, we're going to run an article on it, can we buy images? Or they're putting out alerts on there as well. For example, in the last week, Liat Magazine for the Caribbean and World Nomads are all looking for paid articles on Dominica, which is somewhere I've been. So that's a chance to sell in imagery and videos. Imagery and articles. Obviously, I have advertising on my website. Affiliate links to tours or products that I've done when I've been there. I write for other publications such as Lonely Planet, Skyscanner. There's a lot of publications that you can go onto their website, and if they don't have an article about that place, there's a good chance they'll be interested to hear your perspective on it. So you can search on like some of the big travel sites and be like, hey, Lonely Planet, for example, on the homepage have just put up a become a contributor button where you can pitch straight from the homepage because they're looking for more real life travel stories from people. What else do I do for money? Produce videos, which obviously go on YouTube, which is monetized. Speaking as well, like it's something I've started doing recently, especially if you've gone to a destination that not many people have gone to. You might be able to get paid work at WTM to help represent them at the stand, to meet people. There's just so many ways to make money from your knowledge of a destination, especially if it's a lesser known destination. So I mean, you can get creative. I've come up with really random ways. I've emailed PR boards after I've been and be like, here's some of my images, do you want to buy some? They're like, yes. Or here's a load of video clips. I can turn this into a 2-minute promo video for you. And they've been like, okay, that'd be awesome. How much? So once you've done, I think a lot of the times in travel, we walk away from a press trip and go, right, we're done with that, move on. Whereas actually, you've got so much content that's probably on a hard drive you're never going to look at again. How can you sell that back in? You know, you can reach out to that tourism board a year later and be like, hey, this attraction's shut. Do you want me to re-edit that video for you? It will cost this much. Like, there's so many ways to take the content we've got that we all just shove in a safe or in a cupboard on a hard drive and monetize that. I'm happy if you want to grab me afterwards. I can give you a few links and stuff separately. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of ways to make money that we forget because we're so busy traveling.
Thank you so much for sharing, Carl. I've always thought, why isn't your documentaries on the Travel Channel or something like that?
Yeah, I'm working on it. It's been on my to-do list for a while. I've got like a huge to-do list of things because I've only just started coming to these conferences and all these things you've just listed there. I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. I'll add that to the list. So yeah, I mean, I make most of my money freelancing as a video editor in London, and I sort of fund my trips myself most of the time, and I'm very protective of my channel because I've done a couple of press trips this year. Again, getting to first world problems territory again. I've just bought a flat, so I couldn't afford to go on my own trips, so I had to go on press trips. It was a really tough time. Appreciate the sympathy.
You just have to be homeless like Kim and me. So.
Yeah, well, no, I've got a home now, so it's all right. It's right by Gatwick, which is convenient. But yeah, I make most of the money freelancing for other clients, and that funds my own trips. That means I can keep doing the videos the way I want to do. And usually for the editing jobs I do, I'll just happily do the dullest edits, simplest edits ever, because I want to have creative energy left in the evening to edit my own things. So I'm happy to just do edit jobs where I'm just can't believe they're paying me to push these buttons, and that's when I get my life admin done on the sly. So probably shouldn't say that out loud, but yeah.
One more question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This was an insightful session. I just wanted to find out if each of you could comment a bit on your process while you're actually on the trip, your process of creating content. Do you make notes in your little notebook? Do you record something to yourself? What do you look out for in the moment that you think, oh, this is a good point to start my storytelling from, or my video, or whatever it is? Yeah.
It's a very hard question. I am in the middle of learning how to do that perfectly. Carl can actually probably answer this a little bit better, but I think maybe not. I don't know. Storytelling and YouTube is really hard because I used to kind of think that you have to record everything in the moment and take loads of notes on your phone. But now I learned that there is such a thing as voiceover, which actually genuinely changed my life on YouTube. So now I record everything on my phone. So, I take notes on my phone all the time. Sometimes I just say something into my camera without actually filming. So I'm like, here's some information that you need later. So-and-so just said this. Yeah. So notes, saying something into the camera, and voiceover for later. Because a lot of the stuff that the tour guide tells you about the castle, you can probably research later and say nicely into your voiceover without the wind noise kind of being in your way, for example.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of that, I try and focus on all like the facts of a place. Like, here's the bare facts, like, here's how old this castle is, whatever. You can sort that out later when you're doing the edit. So I focus on filming your sort of emotional reaction to it, because you can't fake that afterwards. I mean, you can say, oh, we had a great time, but it's way better if you get your initial reaction on the ground. So I just try and get the reactionary stuff. But for me, like, if I'm planning my own trip, I usually have like a really cool activity for the start of the trip and have a really cool activity at the end. So I know the video will have a beginning and an end. And then it just comes through sort of practice of... when I first started making videos, I just filmed everything, and then you sort of start editing it and realizing, right, I don't need that, I don't need this bit. This is the main activity for today. So if this afternoon we're just going to chill and have drinks in a bar, no one wants to watch that. So you can put the camera away, and it's just, so it's just sort of, it's almost like editing it in your head as you go, and sort of thinking, what shots do I need? When can I actually just do this rare thing called enjoying the moment, and And yeah, it's just practice, I guess.
Yeah.
Does that help?
And that's a beautiful segue to the last bit that I want to talk about helping each other, because we talked about this before, that it's a cool thing that we can if we can help each other. And any of you have any thoughts about what we can do to help each other, either working together or help promoting each other?
Yes. I mean, I don't know. I think it's just an example of what happened to me. And now she's actually left. But I have a friend. So making friends in the travel industry helps a lot. And if you have friends, and they're awesome, you should do something like sharing trips and sharing content. Sharing contacts, but not in a way like that where you say, this is my PR contact from this company and this is my PR contact from this company. But what my friend Sophie from Sophie's Suitcase did, who's not here now, she got invited on. I know she was there in the corner. Now she's gone. Basically, she got invited on a trip that she couldn't do, so she put my name forward and she said, I know Sandy very well, we align on our values, I think she'd be a great fit for your brand. And then I got invited instead, and that's because she's my friend and because we've worked together and because we've built a relationship. I think it's super selfless of her, and if we could just do a little bit more of that, that would be awesome, instead of, I guess, seeing each other as competition.
I think, collaboration over competition is a big thing. And also, I know, like, most of the time they put groups together, and I know a lot of the PRs, they have no idea who to invite. So they kind of go from recommendation to recommendation, and they want to be sure that the group gets on together. So if you go up to them and be like, actually, we all have those different platforms, but, like, we are interested in the same thing, but we create very different content on different channels. They're getting so much more out of it. They know the trip is going to go well, and, it needs to come from your side. Like, if you know the people you want to work with and you get on with, then, like, go up to them with, like, a pitch. And then I kind of think if there's more than one creator, it kind of creates a momentum. And so when the stories goes live, people will, like, cross-check between all the creators, and it will be more interesting for the brand.
I think it's really important to travel with other people, like pitch. If you, like you were saying, you can travel with someone else with another strength and go away. But the last few press trips I've been on, we've all sat down at the end, had a beer, and put our hard drives on the table and be like, hey, do you want my drone shots? Can I have your underwater stuff? Can I grab these photos? And a lot of press trips I've been on weren't like that. People are like, no way, that's my drone stuff, or that's my imagery. And at the end, we all come away making better content for the client. So I think that's a good way to collaborate there and then. But I also think, and it's something we've talked about a lot in this conference, that we need to be talking to the PRs about diversity as well. Like, I think it's up to all of us as an industry to get to the point that we're not just going on press trips with everyone looking the same or writing the same thing. And I think that's something that we can do as a whole community to collaborate more together, is to raise up everyone's voice. And I think it's really important we keep talking about that.
Just before we wrap up, let's have a few more questions from the audience. I have one from the beanbag over here.
Hi guys, really appreciate all of the things you've said. I'm interested to know from each of you, what's your biggest challenge that you're trying to overcome at this moment in time?
For me, it's just, I'm not full-time, and so it's just figuring out how I can go full-time but keep my channel the way I want it to be, because everyone just wants to turn your YouTube channel into a shopping channel. So I'm just selling products, going, when I go traveling, I like this wash bag, and I'm not going to do that. So it's just figuring out ways to sort of work with brands and PRs, tourism boards, but doing it my way. So that's what that's my to-do list. So
I'll be very quick. Same. I work in an office 4 days a week, so I have a very normal office job. And 3 days a week I travel and I create content, and I never have time for anything else. And I'm genuinely struggling what to do with my life. I've just been to a talk where they said, don't quit your job because your job is awesome. And I'm like, maybe I do want to quit my job, but I also like my job. So trying to find a balance between that is my biggest struggle at the moment.
Mine's trying to do too much when I'm away. Like, we've gone from blogging being snapping a picture on your iPhone and putting it up on a blog to Instagram stories, tweets, filming vertical, square, horizontal. It's impossible to do it all. So Instagram stories now, I take stuff that I filmed in the day and put it up afterwards. I think it's really important not to burn yourself out, because you lose your creativity, you lose your passion for travel. And it's really important to have that chat when you have a partnership of this is too much for one person to do.
You have a question?
Hi guys, loving all the stories and insights so far. My question is about negative experiences. So I'm wondering, have you ever had a negative experience on a press trip, for instance, a hotel that was really bad that you couldn't promote. Have you had that experience? And if not, if you had that experience, how would you deal with it?
I just came back from a press trip in Fushu, near Tokyo, where like the best hotel in town was literally like I don't know what happened there. Like Japan is really great, but that hotel, like the two best hotels, we slept in both. Like you wouldn't like ever book anything there. So it was like to promote the Rugby World Cup coming up there in November. And it was quite nice at the end of the trip because we had a sit down session with the tourism boards and we told them like, you have to fix this issue. If that's the best hotel in town, like how can you expect people to come there? We cannot tell them to stay overnight in this place because they better take the train and go back to Tokyo for that reason. So it's nice when you have the like you know who you're working with, and like I wouldn't put something online even if I'm paid or anything that I don't believe in because I don't want to like lie or like give false advertisement. So if you can tell the client or who you're working with like that's how you improve it, then yeah.
We could go on for hours and hours, but now it's 1 o'clock and we don't want to take any of Adventurous Kate's time. She's going to be talking about blogging for the right reasons, so please don't go anywhere. But before Kate goes on here, give these guys a big round of applause. Thank you.
Again, thanks to Sandy Makes Sense, Kim Wu, Dan Flying Solo, and Carl Watson. And also to WTM and Traverse Events for inviting me to do this panel. Michael, Paul, Anastasia, and especially Charlotte for helping me set up this great panel. Awesome event, guys. Can't wait for next year. You can find links to the 4 amazing creators and the events in the show notes of this episode. And this episode is supported in part by Hotels25.com. It helps you find the best prices on hotel rooms and guest houses and hostels around the world. Hotels25.com. And here's the news that I promised you. Very, very soon, hopefully in a few days, we're going to launch a brand new podcast called Travel Matters. It's the official podcast from T-Bex, and I'm co-hosting with T-Bex CEO Rick Calvert. In the first episode, we're going to be introducing the podcast and explaining what you can expect in Travel Matters, but we're also going to have a conversation with a camel, the travel camel Shane Dallas, who's the conference director of T-Bex Europe. He's going to be sharing some news about T-Bex Europe, an event that's coming up in March in Sicily, Italy. T-Bex is doing their North American event in Billings, Montana later this week, and I'll be there with my microphone recording a lot that we're going to be sharing in upcoming episodes of Travel Matters. So if you're in Billings, come and say hi to me. Next on the Radio Vagabond, we'll be back with more from my trip to Sri Lanka, and I'm so looking forward to that. My name is Palle Bo. See ya.